Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to the people watching live on Facebook. Today I want to highlight something that prosecutors' offices are not always thought of for, and that is the prevention of crime. So I want to highlight a couple of recent efforts by the Maricopa County Attorney's Office in that area. First of all, on Sunday, we partnered with the Scottsdale Police Department and Midas to hold a catalytic converter etching event. And we've done several of these across the valley with different police agencies. This weekend, we were able to etch catalytic converters on approximately 250 vehicles. And it was interesting, as I was talking to one of the officers that was at the event, he told me about an individual that had twice been hit having his catalytic converters stolen. And when he was told about an etching event that we held last year, he went and got his catalytic converters etched and has not had a problem since then. So I do think this is a deterrent, but it's also helpful to us when we're prosecuting cases so that we can link catalytic converters back to the owner and to make sure that that victim gets restitution. It also helps us to prove that the catalytic converter is stolen. The second event we held was last night at the McClintock High School, and I really want to thank the cooperation of the Tempe Police Department. Chief Montenegro was there. I also want to thank the cooperation of Tempe Union High School District as well as McClintock High School principal. And we had parents and kids and other individuals, teachers, come to our fentanyl forum to educate people on the dangers of this. As I have said, I won't call it a drug, it's a poison. This is such an incredible epidemic in our community, and I'll just give you a couple of statistics. First of all, fentanyl is the most commonly detected drug in drug overdose cases in our area. And this is from the Office of the Medical Examiner for Maricopa County. Another disturbing statistic is since 2015, there has been a 5,000% increase in fentanyl-related deaths in Maricopa County. This is not a topic that parents can afford to be ignorant of. Fentanyl is cheap. It is all over the place. It is prolific. It is very easy to get a hold of. This is not a situation where you have to go to a bad part of town and find a dealer on a corner. Fentanyl comes to you. And fentanyl can come to your children, and your children can afford it. This is not something that is exclusive to a certain socioeconomic class. It's not exclusive to certain individuals. It is widespread. One of the things that really struck me last night at the Fentanyl Forum was that in the group of people that showed up, 3 sets of parents or families were there who had lost children to fentanyl overdoses. This is a scourge on society. Please, if you are parents or somebody who takes care of children or works with children, please educate yourself on this. Please talk to your kids about this. What we do know from the research is that kids do care, no matter how they act as teenagers. Kids do care about their parents' expectations for them. So with that, be happy to take any questions. Yes, sir.
What do you make of the state's claim that they're not prepared to resume executions?
So you're referencing the Gunchus case where there has been a request for a writ of a mandate from the Supreme Court to order the execution. I've read the affidavit filed in that brief by Governor Hobbs saying that they're not prepared. And what I would say is I would refer people to the affidavit filed in the reply brief filed by the next of kin or victim in this case. It sets forth a different picture, and it's by someone who was the deputy director of DOC who just left in January and spoke to the readiness of DOC to carry out that execution. Obviously, this is a matter in front of the Arizona Supreme Court, and the Arizona Supreme Court's going to have to decide which of those two prevails.
What do you make of the Judge Duncan's review of ADCRR's execution protocols and practices?
Well, I would have to I'm going to wait till that plays out a little bit more before I comment on that. But what I would say is this. These protocols, there's a narrative out there that there have been some botched executions, and there were 3 executions carried out last year. I attended the last of the 3. They were not botched, and they were performed under a protocol that has been extensively litigated in federal courts, which was overseen by a federal court judge. And there was a settlement reached as to the protocol to be followed, and that was the protocol that was followed.
We talked about where does the county petition stand with the Supreme Court to compel the state to follow through?
The county filed an amicus brief or a friend of the court brief on the request of the victim to have the Supreme Court order the execution to be carried out. We're waiting for the Supreme Court to come down with a ruling in this regard.
And can you confirm, has Gunchus waived his right to the clemency board hearing?
Gunchus did send a letter on, I believe it was Friday, waiving his right to an executive clemency hearing, which was scheduled and will still be, there will be still procedure conducted tomorrow, but it was scheduled for tomorrow.
And last question, why should the execution of Aaron Gunchus happen despite the state's ongoing review?
Besides the state's ongoing what?
Review.
The state's ongoing review. Again, the protocol has been extensively litigated. What Arizona law says is that in order to grant a reprieve or any change of sentence, that it has to go through the Executive Clemency Board. That's the procedure. That's the law. So Arizona does not grant unilateral authority to any one individual, including the governor. And I certainly respect her desire to be cautious, as I've said before. This is the most serious thing that I do as county attorney. But that said, as somebody who has been a prosecutor for 30 years, I know the history of how that protocol was settled. And I also understand from the victim's standpoint that they have been waiting a very, very long time for justice for their loved one. And, Ted Price was executed in 2002. And his sister has been waiting now for 21 years for there to be justice. And I have to balance that. Jimmy.
Do you remember a couple weeks ago when we talked a little bit about those precedent-setting cases, and you said it would change the way your office did some things, and I'm referencing Burns and Cruz. Mm-hmm. So have you had an opportunity to begin that process yet? And if so, can you talk about what you're doing, how it changed things, please?
Yes, so as you're asking about, a couple of weeks ago, there was additional follow-up from the U.S. Supreme Court considering the Cruz decision, which had to do with whether the jury instructions given in these cases was appropriate or not. And the comment that I made 2 weeks ago at my press conference was that I was going to review the Gunchus case in light of that ruling. I've done so, and if you'll notice from the amicus brief that we filed, we talked about the Cruz decision and its potential impact on the case. It is up to Mr. Gunchus to raise. At this point, he has not raised that as an issue. That said, after my review, I don't think that Cruz really would impact Mr. Gunchus' case, but again, he can raise it if he so chooses. As far as the other cases that are affected by that, yes, we are going to, we have started the process of reviewing them and handling those cases, identifying them and moving forward appropriately.
Okay. Are you giving any new instruction to the folks who do those cases for you now in light of those decisions?
Well, obviously the new instruction has been dictated in part by the United States Supreme Court, so we will be certainly following what the court wants us to do.
Okay, and then finally, are you getting a sense of how many more cases you might have to review? Are you doing your own internal kind of looking around instead of like waiting on them to be sent back to, or will you just kind of continue to wait for them to be sent back to the local courts?
Well, you have to understand how the process works. Obviously, after we've prosecuted a case, it goes to the Attorney General's office to handle the direct appeals. So some of that I'm sure that the Attorney General will be reviewing. Is that it? All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody.